Hey, in this video I'm going to go over a bunch of examples from my arena footage and just talk about what's happening and the reasons why I'm doing certain things. A lot of players have trouble keeping up with the pace of PvP, and I put out tons of guides and build videos, but if you don't know what you're looking at when it comes to actually using it in combat, it can be hard to make sense of it all, especially since so much is going on so quickly. It's one of those things that I've really forgotten to cover because it's so natural at this point. I watch back a lot of my match footage at double speed to decide if it's really worth uploading, so it's easy for me to forget that most players won't necessarily understand exactly what's going on, especially at full speed. Now, I don't claim to be the best pilot ever, but I do think I can help a lot of people with their piloting skills in this situation. On top of that, I'm going to explain the basics for any of my arena match videos so you can go and watch them and better understand what's happening and even spot some mistakes I've made. For example, there are several times where I use an ability at the wrong time, or I could have capitalized on a weakness and didn't. Okay, so let's look at a frame from one of my matches. In this case, it's from a Bowsman Frigate video, but not the one that I previously uploaded. If you look at the bottom section of the screen, there's a buff bar and my ability hotbars. Tray 7 is essentially my always-on tray, where I put emergency power abilities, intel team, fire modes, and so on. Then, tray 5 here is where I have my debuff clears like science team and engineering team, along with a few other things like the sensor interference platform. Then trays 1 and 2 are all activated manually with the number keys, or control plus a number key. And sometimes if you watch my mouse, I click them manually that way too. These are abilities which I deem situational enough to require manual activation, like universal consoles and so on. Obviously for Xbox and PlayStation players, this looks way different to you, but you get the idea. The same thing as having certain abilities on your wheel instead of on the auto trigger setup. Of course, there are a ton of ways to do this, and everyone's individual playstyle and preferences will affect both which abilities are on these trays and what order they're in. I can't really tell you an objectively best way to set it up, and there are ways I could better optimize even my own play. It's all about learning and improving over time. It took me years to get over just having everything on one single spacebar tray and separating some abilities to different keys. It was difficult to retrain my hands to not mindlessly press spacebar every 2 seconds and do nothing else, and I'm still trying to improve my timing for other things. So with that said, you can watch or pause any video I posted and see exactly what I'm doing in real time. The next thing I want to talk about is my buff bar, which I've set to be double size so I can see it more easily. Again, another advantage for PC players that console players don't have. But I look at my buff bar frequently in combat to see what's going on. Any buff icons that are blue or green are self-buffs. Usually the rule of thumb is that green buffs can be stripped from you if you're subnuked. And just to show what that looks like too, this is the icon for subnuke when you're hit by it. All of your buffs disappear and you'll only see this, so you'll want to clear it as quickly as possible and start building back up your buffs. If you're in the middle of healing or have the Invincible trait active and you lose your buffs, you'll die if you don't get your ship back in action quickly. I can't even count how many times I've seen a player newer to PvP take a subnuke or similar debuff and keep flying around normally without clearing it and then dying because of it, and they never even knew what happened. Orange icons are debuffs against me. This could be the negative effects of starship traits or bridge officer abilities or anything else that has a negative effect against my ship. And that leads into the next part. You can also see my teammates' buff bars under their names, along with the distance at the top left of my screen. Whenever you see a lot of orange icons on a teammate, or if a teammate calls to me in voice chat, I'll use my boost morale to clear them off. This is an even bigger deal when flying a healer. Many times when I am flying a healer, I'm barely watching where I'm actually flying, and instead I'm just looking at my teammates' distance and health in this corner of the screen. Also, whichever teammate I have targeted is both highlighted in white and appears at the top center of my screen. Many times I'll target a teammate briefly in order to use a heal, like hazard emitters, then break the target on purpose so I can keep healing myself or doing something else. Alright, so let's get into some more practical examples now that you know where to look at. It's really hard to separate them, but I'm going to try to categorize them loosely into 3 parts. Part 1 is common basic mechanics that you might see in a PvP match. Part 2 is damage or debuffs that I'm inflicting on other teams, either to score a kill directly or to set up the target to be killed by one of my teammates. And Part 3, debuffs being inflicted against me, how I deal with the situation and how teammates are helping me. Okay, so one of the first basic mechanics I wanted to show off is what it looks like when you're being placated. And I already kind of covered this in my basic settings video a while back, but it's helpful to show it here. In this case, I have Anita Quickie targeted, and they appear to go invisible for a moment, but I can still see visual effects trailing their ship. In this case, looks like some impulse engines and damage. But if I look down on my buff bar, I can actually see that I've been placated by pseudo-submission because the orange icon is on my ship. Luckily, pseudo-submission is reduced by having high control expertise, so it doesn't last very long, and I'm able to immediately reacquire my target just a few seconds later. In this next clip, I'm going to show a ship that goes into Obfuscation screen, which is a universal console a lot of players use to get out of trouble when they're in sticky situations. Basically, their ship stops in place, and green smoke comes out of it. While they're in Obfuscation screen, you can't target them or damage them, and they usually heal back up to basically full health. They also get a very, very large 120% bonus damage resistance rating from this console, and they can choose to come out of the obfuscation screen at any time, but up to a maximum of 20 seconds. In this clip, I actually fly around waiting for this ship to come out of obfuscation screen so that I can attack it as soon as he comes out. Once he comes out of obfuscation screen, I know that I can start dealing damage again, and I try to land some big hits before he can fly away from me. In this clip, I'm going to talk really quick about dark mode and cloaks and, well, stealth in general. The ship I'm chasing is a Section 31 battlecruiser, and the ship goes into dark mode. I can still see the visual effect on the nacelles, so I try to get as close as possible. The closer you are to the target, the less effective their stealth is, and as I turn in front of him here, I actually break the cloak and I'm able to target and attack him. Because I get so close and I land some hits, I actually end up decloaking him and forcing him back into combat so I can continue the chase. In this clip, I'm going to show someone dropping a sensor interference platform, which lowers your outgoing damage by a very large percentage. Because I have target pets and objects disabled, I have to manually click on it in order to destroy it. Clearing these off the battlefield is important as they affect all teammates of yours within a certain distance, and if your team is dealing substantially less damage, you're at a huge disadvantage. In this video, my teammate Klinger has the Temporal Spec set as his primary, and this moment where he jumps back about 8 kilometers is the Temporal Spec continuity going off. It teleports him backwards, he doesn't die, and he begins to rapidly heal. Usually I'm on the other side of this where you're damaging someone and they snap back in front of you and end up not dying. However, in this case, it's a teammate and I attempt to heal him. In this video, there are a number of Nakul ships. These ships have a console that drops a pet version of their main ship. While the pet is active, the main ship has an orange bubble around it and is immune to all damage until the pet is destroyed, which lasts about 30 seconds. When dealing with these types of ships, the faster you can kill that pet, the better. In this clip, my target uses Elachi Rift Jump, which creates this black smoke cloud, and I see the visual effect of his ship moving off to the right. I chase him down, but as soon as he comes out of the Elachi Rift Jump, he uses Temporal Backstep, which is the ability granted by the Tippler cylinder console. His ship slowly moves backwards and heals, and his ability cooldowns are reset as well. However, I stay close to him and I'm able to attack him almost as soon as he comes out, but here he uses the Invasive Maneuvers trait to stay hidden from me. In this clip, my team has damaged Haggai, who I also start chasing when I notice he's low on health. Then, I fire off a subnucleonic beam after he's at Zahl, resulting in a near instant kill, despite Zahl granting 8 seconds of immunity. This is really a team effort. In this case, I only dealt a small amount of damage, but my subnucleonic beam sealed the deal on a kill. There are many other times where I'm dealing damage and a teammate's subnucleonic beam seals the deal for a kill. It all depends on who you're working with and what your team makeup is like. If you're a tactical captain, you don't have the option of subnucleonic beam, so you're really depending on a teammate to eliminate someone's Zahl, or you can just keep damaging them for the 8 seconds that they're trying to heal, and then they'll die at the end of the 8 seconds. Here's another example. Haggai again is on the run from us, and you can notice that at the top right, his buff bar shows that he has 5 protomatter consoles procced, and he's going to rapidly heal up in very short order. However, my teammate flies in and hits him with a subnucleonic beam, immediately eliminating any active healing that he has in progress. If that subnucleonic beam hadn't hit him, we probably would not have scored this kill, but since his healing is completely stripped and he has no speed anymore, we're able to finish him off rather quickly. In this section of the fight, the ship that I'm shooting at starts to run away to heal up. I try to chase, and a teammate who's on voice chat with me is also chasing my target. I don't have a ton of perception on this build, but my teammate is running what's called a snooper layout, which basically means he has very, very high perception for targeting stealth ships. The person I'm chasing cloaks his ship, but my teammate can still see him, and at this moment, he actually hits him with a gravity well and decloaks him so that I can land the finishing blows. In this clip, I'm again working with my teammate George, and we're chasing down the ship T'Challa. We're both in science control builds, so we don't have an enormous amount of damage, but we do have the ability to lock him down. In this video clip, you can actually hear me talking to my teammate, telling him where the target is, when I have him tractor beamed or disabled, and what's going on in the fight, because sometimes it's hard to see, and from certain angles, my teammate might not be able to see my target. Maybe by luck, but usually on purpose. I clear off any negative effects against me as quickly as possible. In this sample clip, I actually get subnuked and then immediately hit Science Team less than a second later and clear that effect off my ship, and I'm right back in combat no problem. In a similar situation in my Freedom Frigate video, I actually get subnuked twice. I clear it off myself, but then I get subnuked again a few seconds later after my science team is already on cooldown. Normally, this means I can't really do anything about it, and I'm pretty much at the mercy of the enemy team, but a teammate uses boost morale here, which clears the subnukes off of me, and I'm able to stay alive and resume combat. Speaking of helping out teammates, in this video where I'm flying my healer, I have my other healer targeted, who in turn has our team's escort targeted, and we kind of have a daisy chain of healing going on. Having a teammate apply heals to you, or even better, clear debuffs off of you, can be critical to staying alive in PvP. That's also why it's important to communicate, whether by game chat or voice chat, to let your team know what the situation is and how they can help you. Of course, good healers should be watching their teammates' buff bars most of the time, And in this case, I see my teammate Rare start to lose health when he's in trouble. I immediately close the distance and start healing him, and I also apply the Europa console, which grants him a huge amount of bonus damage resistance. I'm able to keep him alive no problem here, and then I also applied the Tachyon detection grid since I'm flying the Nebula. That gives my entire team enough stealth sight to target anyone through Exodus. Alright, I think that covers a bunch of different scenarios. I'm sure there's tons of stuff I missed. I mean, this game is huge, so if you see something in one of my other videos, feel free to comment or ask me. Give me a timestamp or something to look at, and I'd be happy to explain the situation in more detail and help you out. Or if you record clips of your own matches, you can upload them, send me a link, and just ask, you know, hey, what's happening here? And I'd be happy to help you out. Alright, have a good one.